Hello. Appreciate you guys joining me this evening. Um, got a lot going on. We got some topics I definitely wanted to make sure I talked to you about tonight. We've got some folks in general that have asked some questions lately that I think we all could maybe use kind of a refresher on or an answer to. Um, and yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk with you. It seems like August went by very, very quickly. Seems like this whole year's gone by very, very quickly. But yeah, thanks for joining me tonight. And as my wife just noted, we have a special guest, Toaster Strudel. Um, she's a good cat, depending upon who you ask, and maybe she'll chime in if she has some answers for you guys. Ah, thanks, George. I did get a little bit of tan this weekend. Guess that's a good enough place to start. I'd like to share with you guys an experience I had from this last weekend. So, um, as you guys may or may not have been aware, I think the very closing days of July, maybe the beginning of August, there was a very tragic marine training accident off the coast of Southern California. Unfortunately, a lot of young men just starting out and training lost their lives. And come to find out, one of those young men happened to be ousted true. Wasn't an AFA member. Didn't know anything about the kid before the family reached out. But I'm assuming they found our contact information at runestone.org. Um, but however they came across it, this young man's family reached out and asked for help and assistance, and eventually asked um, if we could supply a Gothi to go and perform this young man's funeral. And it was a tremendous, tremendous honor to be able to do that for him, for his memory, and for his family. So I got in the car, and first I waited around a long time for the military to figure it out and kind of being on call. There was a lot of unknowns because it was out to sea. They had to recover the remains. So there was a lot of things going into it, but I drove down from Reno to San Diego this last weekend and was able to do that and perform his service at Miramar National Cemetery. And it was a tremendous honor to be there amongst so many very honored dead of our military folks that have lost their lives. It was a very special. It was a very special thing to be able to be a part of. Very moving. This young man had full military honors. Uh, just 19 years old. But what was really important to me is that the family and this young man took Ouster True serious enough that they wanted an Ouster True funeral, um, and not kind of a private pretend Ouster True funeral for friends and family at a different time. But no, the funeral for this young man was an Ouster True funeral. And I think that marks a really special time that we are in to where folks are taking this very seriously and where folks are recognizing the AFA as a legitimate, the legitimate source for that spiritual authority of having someone officiate these kind of events. Um, just like to say so that his name gets out there because I think it's important that we always speak the names of the dead. Lance Corporal Chase Sweetwood, and it's my tremendous honor to have been able to be at his service. Um, I hope that his family appreciated it, and I hope that he appreciates it. Um, so that said, it got me in kind of a serious mood this last month, and I think there's time for that. I think it's important that we take note of serious things. One new addition to our website and to our contact page, and something I'll be talking more about throughout this month, um, is a special emergency contact link. to an emergency@runestone.org email address. We have more of our people these days who are, as I said, taking things very seriously and willing to reach out to the AFA when they need help, when things go wrong in their life, when things are important that they need someone to help them with. And that's really important. And our Gothar have become very good over the years at being able to counsel people, being able to help people, and being able to be there for folks and their families. But it's always in the back of my mind haunted me, what if we get a really important message and somebody misses it, or somebody doesn't check their email, or something slips through the cracks, and our job is too important for that to happen. So on our contact section in red, it has for anyone who needs it, who's experiencing an emergency, emergency@runestone.org. And that will go immediately to all of our leadership. So, someone reaching out may get too much help, but they're not going to have to worry about no one hearing them. And it's really important to me, and I want you guys to know it's there. I want anyone listening to this, anyone within the sound of my voice, know that's there. Obviously, one of those big, scary things is people who have come to the end of the rope and they're contemplating suicide. September is Suicide Prevention Month, and I think it's worth saying right now, anyone out there, if you're having that struggle in your life, if you're at that point where you feel like that's something you're thinking about, and I would ask you, please reach out, give us a shot to talk to you about it. That's not the answer. It's not the solution. There's always so much more to be done, so much more we can do. But I would ask anybody to please reach out and at least give that a shot. So yeah, not to be too morose, but any kind of an emergency, if you need the immediate assistance of a GOTHI or of AFA leadership, emergency@runestone.org. Like I said, that'll immediately go to all of our leadership, so somebody will be getting back to you with a quickness on that. I want our AFA family to know that there's always somebody there. And that's really important to me. Also, to mention on that, Naval veteran and AFA member in San Diego, Grayson Wilson, was a huge help to me. Gray, thank you so much. I really appreciate your help with the service. I appreciate your help with the setup, and I also really appreciate, having that time, having that day on Friday to spend with you, and having you with me through that. Thank you very much. It was a huge help, and the family noticed that help too. So I mentioned earlier, this month went by real quick. And that being said, it's Fall Fest time. I am really stoked this weekend. We're going to have Fall Fest. It's going to be amazing. It's always amazing up there. And I'm really excited to see our Northern Plains family and any of the rest of our AFA family that's able to make it up to Fall Fest. Like I've said before, Southern hospitality is a thing, but we don't often hear about the hospitality of folks up in Minnesota and the Dakotas, but that hospitality is top notch and takes a backseat to no one. So if, last minute, if you can make it to Fall Fest, sign up, get registered, and we'd love to see you there this weekend. We got big things going on, and it's going to be a very special time. I'm going to check on here. Anybody have any questions tonight? Is there anything anybody wanted to make sure they heard me talking about, or got a reaction or an answer to? We're going to do our very best to answer all the questions, but I saw Mandy post over here that she's having a difficult time managing the questions. So we're looking up, we're trying to figure it out, and if there's any way to, go ahead and ask anything you want, and we'll do our very best to get to it, and I'll do my very best to answer it for you. Not seeing a massive amount of questions yet, but a couple of things have come up in side conversation over the past past couple of weeks, and I think they're, I don't know, worth saying because I think sometimes people may not know. Um, One of the questions that we get is how's the AFA structured, and like how does the structure of the Astro Folk Assembly work? How are things done? What does that look like? And I'd like to start, and this is new this year. We changed around how we did our Folk Builders and our Gothar. Used to be those were two very separate systems. The Folk Builders did one thing, our Gothar did a different thing, and they were separate. Often we'd have Folk Builders who were also Gothar, and in the paths would cross in that way, but they're very separate trees. Well, we brought that together this year. So I'll start out the first level of AFA leadership is your local folk builders. Now, folk builders start out as apprentices. People who want to be a folk builder want to organize things in their area. They want to help manage the AFA membership, not only just grow it, but make sure that those folks are in communication with each other, that those folks feel like they're part of the bigger AFA picture, and really take care of those people locally and see their area thrive. Those folks start out as apprentice folk builders. And after about a year or so, if it's something that they want to continue doing, then they'll oath in and become an oathed folk builder or just a regular folk builder. Um, it's important to know that those people aren't just some guy that helps connect each other. They're not just an organizer. They're a level of leadership in our church and in what we're trying to do, and we appreciate that leadership and what they put out there for our folk. Um, so after that, and again, new this year, we've limited our applicants to our Gothar training program to only oathed folk builders. So once one becomes an oathed folk builder, if they feel like it's something that they want to pursue, if they have that spiritual calling and that relationship with our gods, and if they want to serve our folk in the capacity of Gothar, of priests and priestesses of our faith, then they go ahead and they apply for that. We look that over and we consider a lot of things on it. We consider whether we think those people are ready or whether there's steps that they need to take beforehand. Maybe some things we'd like to see them work on or some material we'd like to make sure they're familiar with before we let them in. We also have to consider, something people also may not know about it. Our Gothar program is done in a mentorship model. So when we have students, each student has a mentor that instructs them through the materials and all the way up until they become a Gothi, and hopefully keeps helping them and bringing them along after they're ordained. But so one of the other considerations when someone applies to the Gothar program is how many mentors do we have, and pairing those with the students. So a number of those things go into play. If someone's accepted into the Gothar program, then they have about a year of really comprehensive study on book learning. So they got a year of studying the lore, reading different things, reading different essays, and going through the scholastic portion. But this is really important. To be a Gothi, somebody needs to know the lore. They need to be well versed in theories and in our history and our lore, both our ancient history and our modern history. But all of the lore knowledge in the world doesn't amount to much if it can't be applied. It's much more important to the Astro Folk Assembly that it's prerequisite. You have to be fluent in our lore and know that. But your ability to serve as a counselor, to help lead our people, to help to help our people when they're in need, and to provide that counseling. Ritual is really important, and a lot of people, when they want to be a Gothi, they want to be the center of rituals and perform those, and that's important. But it's really important to realize that ritual is not about the spotlight or getting out in the circle and doing a performance. There's certainly those elements, but fundamentally, ritual is about connecting our gods and our people. Ritual is about the Alu formula. It's about connecting the gods through that ritual to the folk and vice versa. It's about establishing and maintaining that gift cycle. So we make sure that people can really do that. So that goes to once you've completed your year-long scholastic portion of the Gothar program, then there's an indefinite amount of time where that's put into practical application. And we guide our Gothar through practically applying that and really serving the folk as Gothi. Um, so we do that. It's very important. That's something we take really seriously. Historically, many more people have joined the Gothar program than have graduated. But once you make it through there, take a holy oath and you become ordained as a Gothi or Githya in the Astru Folk Assembly. Our Gothar are the ones that manage our regions and serve as helpers and as supervisors to our folk builders. Now, above the Gothar, there's the Witten. And the Witten was established in 2016. And the Witten is a group of wise men that serve as that kind of high council of the Astru Folk Assembly. The Witten are an advisory panel, and I discuss things with them. We meet through conference call twice a month to make sure we're on top of things, but we also are in constant communication back and forth, very often several times a day, to discuss the issues that face the Astru Folk Assembly and you know what we're dealing with right now, any problems that arise, but importantly, planning for the future and where we're going and what we're doing and how to best accomplish those things. So on the Witten, we've got some really great folks who've done a lot for us. Newest member of the Witten is Gothi Svan Harrell. Svan is the officiating Gothi for Thorshoff. He is a very deeply qualified spiritual man. He is an amazing artist and somebody who brings a lot of very wise counsel to the table. We also have Gothi Blaine Qualls, who's our Gothar coordinator. He manages and leads our Gothar, and he's done a tremendous job on helping structure our Gothar course over the years, on making sure that's up to the high standard that we need it to be, and of leading and taking care of our Gothar. So he is also a tremendous resource. Um, he's also the driving force behind making Fall Fest that's coming up a thing. Blaine really has a knack for getting things done and making things happen. We also have Clifford Erickson. Cliff has done a lot for the AFA, but very specifically, he handles our technical things, website related, email related, and all of the ways that the AFA interfaces with technology. Cliff's been doing that for a very long time. He's been doing that since before the Witten existed. He brings an awful lot to the table, and he does any number of side tasks for us. And Cliff runs Winter Nights, which is coming up in October, and I encourage you guys all to come out to that. Then after Cliff, we have law speaker Alan Turnage. Alan his counsel is invaluable. Very often, I'll get very passionate and very excited about an idea, and I talk about this a lot, but sometimes Alan's the wheat side to my frosted side, and discussing things with him and getting his counsel and stuff is extremely important. Also, him being a practicing lawyer is very beneficial because he's an incalculable help when we have to deal with legal things or purchasing property and how best to do that, dealing with any of those kind of issues. He's been amazing. Basically, Alan propels us forward in huge ways on adulting, and he's excellent at that. So that's the Witten, and like I say, we discuss things constantly. They counsel me and they advise me and do an amazing job of that. And then ultimately, it's my responsibility to make the final call on things and to make the decisions that guide and that direct the Astru Folk Assembly and that lead us moving forward. And that's kind of how the AFA is structured. Some of you guys may be old hat and you guys know it. Some people may still be curious. So I'm going to go back and see if you guys have any questions. Mandy tells me there's a question about minors coming to events. Um, so in general, for people coming to events, they're for AFA members and vouched for guests. You have to be an adult to be an AFA member. But as far as the vouched for guest category, we would love to have minors there, but we run into some issues. So it's really important that we have that parental consent if minors are going to be there. Minors are welcome to attend if they are vouched for guests, but they do need to be accompanied by a parent or guardian. And if their parent or guardian's with them, then we would love to have minors come to our events. We certainly have all kind of AFA minors and members of AFA families at events. They're very kid friendly, and it's been great to see all the kids there. But minors, if you're interested, please bring a parent or guardian, and don't hesitate to reach out to your folk builder, and we'll see what we can do to make that happen. Like I said, if you can get a parent or guardian to go with you. Refresh some stuff here. Make sure I'm getting. It's strange because I have to look at you guys on my phone in order to get the questions, and then I have to constantly refresh to get them. So do the best I can to answer these questions. Alan is, in fact, a fine Southern gentleman and a lawyer. He is a gentleman and a scholar, and he brings that to bear for us. Uh-oh, even more special guests. My beautiful daughter Aubrey is joining us. She has she's she's taken a lot of my attention the past 4 months, but she's an amazing little girl. This is the future right here. I think this is why we all do what we do and why it's so very important. So I appreciate her joining us for a second. I'm gonna give her back to her mom here. Um, you're always a fan favorite. Every time Aubrey's on here, there's a flood of heart emojis. I appreciate that. Um, so I'm still looking for questions, and I'm not finding a lot of them so far. That's fine because I'm getting a little bit better at the dead air here, and I'll ramble on to you about more stuff if I don't have questions. But primary thing on this is to get your guys questions. So if you guys have stuff you want to ask, please ask. If you don't hear an answer, please ask again. We're doing our best to answer them. But yeah, well, so also one of the uh, one of the big accomplishments and one of the big selling points of the Astro Folk Assembly is that we've been really successful lately in our ability to establish HOFs. And so, one of the big points is we're able to, hey, if you want a HOF in your area, get behind the team that's making HOFs happen. And that's true. And I think it's really important. I think that establishing HOFs speaks to our ability to accomplish. I think it speaks to our just capacity to get things done. But more importantly, I think it speaks to the fact that we're being blessed by our gods and that what we're doing, at least in the broad strokes, is pleasing to them and is something that they support. And I believe that wholeheartedly. Um, and that kind of brings me down to the point I'm trying to make. When we get in a fervor on, hey, the AFA is your best route to get a HOF in your area, that's absolutely true. But if you're joining the AFA in the hopes that you can get a HOF and that's the whole reason, then you're missing the point. Um, some people are stuck in an old paradigm, and I think there's all kind of Ouster True organizations out there. The AFA is not an organization, though we are organized. The AFA is a church. Not only is the AFA a church, the AFA is the church for the Aesir on Midgard. And we do our very, very best to enact the will of our gods and to make them proud in all that we do. And we believe that we have that connection. I think one of the most important things about reasons to join the Ouster Folk Assembly is to be part of that, is to be part of those blessings that we share as a community, blessings that the gods have been dealing out pretty heavily to us. And I think that's part of getting in on the gift cycle that's been established. As the Ouster True Folk Assembly in its current iteration, our gift cycle of doing our very best to worship our gods and receiving their blessings has been going on for 25 years this year. Pretty soon, 26 years. This year's flying by. Um, and that's a pretty substantial thing. But if you take Steve's relationship with the gods, which ours is based on, and which we piggyback on, and I believe we're very much get a certain inheritance from that relationship and all of the things that Steve's done with House of True. Steve McNallen has been doing this for 51 years, about to be 52. That's a long time. It's a long, long relationship of giving and receiving from our gods. And that's the main reasons that you should be involved with the AFA. A sincere faith in the gods, a sincere belief that we are doing the will of the gods to the very best of our ability, and a desire to be part of that, participate in that, and to share in that. Those are the things that are important. And by doing that, by doing it consistently and by doing it wholeheartedly and honestly, that's how we get those HOFs and those great things that we've been able to experience and we've been able to have. So I wanted to clear that up too. I know a lot of people, that's their big sell is, hey, we should be part of the AFA so that we can make some HOFs happen. And you should, but it's a much, much bigger thing than that. And if you're part of the AFA, we want you part of the big picture, not just the little picture. So where's my questions, guys? Help me out here. Hmm. All right. So it appears we got some good questions going on. I'll take the ones I've got here chronologically and I'll keep refreshing. If I don't get to yours, please do make sure you're asking. Uh, where do we see ourselves socially during these tense times? I hope I'm getting to the meat of what you're asking. I think it's twofold. I think there's us as we relate to the world around us in to the Utgard, and us as we relate to the Innengard. Um, Socially, the AFA has been great. When all the chaos and really extreme things that we see out in the world are going on, the AFA this year has been a refuge where people have been coming together and having some normalcy and being able to experience a life in a world that makes sense when so much around us this year has not made sense in the bigger picture of the world around us. So socially, I think the AFA is doing great by sticking together, by taking strength from each other when we're in times of stress, taking comfort from each other. I think that's been huge this year, and I think that's never been better. In the world around us, I think the best thing that we can do is try to shine as beacons of sanity, of nobility, and right action when so many people around us are seemingly insane and doing crazy things. I think this is a time of awakening, of people's eyes opening up. And what we can do is serve as that touchstone and that example of something that makes sense, something that our grandparents would recognize and appreciate, something that has the timeless values that define our folk. And I think that's going to be a very valuable commodity as these times increase. And it's a special thing that we get to be part of that. A lot of folks are waking up, and a lot of people want a taste of something normal and something they recognize and something that makes some sort of sense. And I think we are that. And I think that's what we can show to the world. Not sure if that got to your question, George, or not, but hopefully it did. After Fall Fest, can folks go work on Baldershoff? You're going to need to ask Gothi Qualls that. I know that some of us are. I know that I am, and I'm very excited to see it and check it out. It is quite a ways from the event site, but if that's something you want to do, I know some folks are going to go check that out and try to see what we can do after the event. So go ahead and talk to Blaine and see if you can get that arranged. What can a family expect from a national event if they attend for the first time? Can't make a promise for everyone, but what I would tell a family to expect is to show up someplace to feel comfortable, to feel welcomed, to over the course of the weekend feel like you're in a place where your children are safe, where you and your family are valued, and by the time you leave, to have developed friends and to have the feeling of family with the people you attended the event with our AFA family. I'm always talking about that AFA family, but that's what I felt from the second I went to a national event way back in 2010, 2009 until now. And it's hard to explain in words when you're not there, but the feeling you get when you meet other AFA members and you connect with them, you make friendships and relationships that last a lifetime. I think it's a safe place for families. I think it's a welcoming place for families, and I think it's a way to become to develop a bigger, wholesome AFA family. So that's what I would suggest families look forward to expecting. Ash, yes, please bring your 16-year-old. I think it's not only appropriate, but we would love to see them there. Um, yeah, please. If it's your child and you're an AFA member, your children are absolutely welcome. Please bring them. Hmm. All right, so you caught me. Where is my Mjolnir? Every month I come on here and tell you guys to wear it outside your shirt. I always do, but I got rushed getting ready for this tonight, and I ended up putting it on underneath my shirt, or actually, I put this shirt on over top of it. But never leave the house that way. On top of it, here it is, loud and proud. The Hammer of Thor. Hail Thor. There you go. Um, Terry, yes, a date has been set for Ostara in the South. Um, you should discuss with the folk builders in your area about getting that up on the Thorshoff website. I talked to them about it a little bit, but the date is up and active on the main AFA. I'm sorry, on the Thorshoff Facebook page. The event is up and on the calendar and in the events section of the AFA Facebook page right now, and you can go take a look at that. I don't remember the dates for it off the top of my head, but it's going to be that weekend before the equinox there. So go check that out if you want to date and figure out any more information about that. That is going to be held at Thorshoff, so please speak to those folks, our wonderful AFA leadership in the Upper South, and anybody who wants to attend Ostara in the South, they can get you all set up as the months get closer. um, got a question about explaining our beliefs to a spouse or significant other. That's an open-ended question, and it's hard to answer because it's not one size fits all, and it depends on where they're coming from. It depends on if they're coming from a different spiritual background, and if so, which one. And it also depends if they're coming, maybe from an atheist background. If you're dealing with people who don't believe at all, I think that one of your best starting points is ancestors and ancestor worship. Whether they believe in an afterlife or not, your ancestors are real. They exist. You can show them pictures. Scientifically, it's a given that they exist for you to be here. They don't have to contemplate the existence of the gods at that point, they can start by certainly acknowledging the existence of ancestors and then working on that. I think that's always been a really good place to start and a place to honor. Certainly, even if they don't accept an afterlife, they can tend to agree that honoring your ancestors is good. Whether grandma's alive or dead, honoring your grandma is a good thing to do. And I think that's a really good starting point for people who aren't openly hostile, but who tend to be atheist. I think that's a nice start. Um, I think you go a completely different route for somebody who's got belief, but it's strange. Sometimes you'll run into people that believe in ghosts and other things that way, but won't believe in our gods. And I think that's also a good place to start. I think if they're willing to believe in anything that's, I hate to say supernatural because it's all natural, but if they believe in anything outside the normal or in the esoteric, then I think that's a place you can get to. But one of the things that's really important is get them to an event and get them to see how other people interact with the divine, get them to understand how it's affected you and your life. Um, Something that's tricky, but I think is important with atheists is if they can see that your faith, whether it's real or not, is real to you and has made a difference in your life, it opens their mind a little bit to the possibility. And if they see the effect it has on you, they drop their defenses and no longer fight against it. Even if they don't believe in it, they don't feel like it's a bad thing or try to advise you against it. And at that point, it's nice to bring them in and get them involved, get them to a step where they enjoy the community and the camaraderie, even if they don't feel the presence of the gods. And then over time, I hate to use such a crass expression, but I think it's applicable. You fake it till you make it. If they go and they participate and they're there, you'd be surprised because one of the most special things I've been able to experience in Alsatru, both as a regular AFA member, certainly as a Gothi and as Altair Gothi, is when you see somebody's eyes open, when it goes from something that they really want to believe in, that they say they believe in, and that they try to live like they believe in, to when it just is real. And it shakes people to their core. Some people get angry, some people cry, some people just stand there, they're baffled. But when the divine is real to someone, very often in a moment of ritual, but at other times, it's indescribable, but there's nothing like it when it happens. You know it when it happens. And once your eyes are open, you can never close them again. So that's what I'd suggest on that. Bringing the energy of a national event home with you. Um, so I think Altitude is about doing. Fundamentally, it's about doing things. There's so much energy and something to think about when people go to national events, especially if it's their first time. Um, Especially if it's their first time, they'll be blown away by the energy, by the number of people there. Maybe they've only known, maybe you go to a national event and before that you've only known 3 or 4 other Alsatourer, maybe none at all. And all of a sudden there's 30, 40, 50 at midsummer, 140 Alsatourer. And it's amazing. And you want to go right back to where you are and start something and have it, it's going to be 100 people and it's going to be 100 people tomorrow. I really appreciate the enthusiasm and I hope that it is. I absolutely, if you can make that happen, please apply to be a folk builder at once because we need you. But a lot of the time, these national events are the culmination of people putting in months and years of building a community in their area. When I first started, it was me and one other guy and his family. And there was 2 groups. So it was me and one other guy and his family, and then me and two women who were practicing. And the 2 groups didn't want to get together at first. This was up in Alaska. And over time, we got, 4 or 5 people maybe. and it was great, and I loved it. And then I went to a national event. Next thing you know, I think that year there were 60 some people there. I was blown away. It's a different thing. So taking that energy and trying to build in your area, things start to snowball, but you got to start with that enthusiasm and have it keep you into building something. I always suggest with new folk builders that you try to host moots at at places that you like to go anyway. Um, if you're single, sure, but even more so if you have a wife or girlfriend, pick some place that you guys like to go and call that an AFA moot and see if you can get people to show up. And if they show up, awesome, that's a start. And if they don't, then you guys have a great date night, no harm, no foul. Do that consistently for a few months and see what happens. It's a big ask, but keeping that up after a national event, that's how it builds and grows. And if you want any advice on how to do that successfully, please reach out to your local folk builder. They can all be contacted on the contact page at www.runestone.org, and they can walk you through the best way to do that and give you any kind of tips that they've garnered over the years. Um, so we got a question about study material and ways to help make the lore more understandable and more, more understandable when it comes to everyday practice and how it relates to life. Um, I think I wish I had a great answer for that question that made it all very easy. And I don't think that there is the super easy way. But I think one thing that's really important is to not try to digest all the lore at once. I don't think trying to give you a lore with crutches is the best way to go because I think that you're being able to pick up the beauty of the lore as it is really important. But I think that when you read, say, the Eddas, read one section at a time and ponder it, and also make sure that you're making yourself familiar with the people of that time, what they did, how they act, and our people through the entire span of history become familiar with customs and things we do, and always ask the question why we do them. I think that's what comes down to the best way of understanding our lore is not worrying about the what's as much as you worry about the whys. There's some great books on it. I think that Culture of the Teutons is an amazing book, but it's not something that's going to make anything easier. It's a very, very difficult read, but an extremely rewarding one. I think you're also really well served at asking your folk builder and your Gothar what their suggestions are, because depending on what you're looking at, there's a lot of really good sources. I know that's not the best answer that you want, but I think that's going to be your most accessible path to get where you want. Also, Gothi Brian Wilton's written a lot of books and his books are always very practical. They're lessons that he's learned out of the lore and ways that he's found to apply lessons in our lore to your life. So I'd encourage those as well. And he's written quite a few books. So I would check that out. Charles in Michigan, I would encourage you to reach out. Hopefully, Mandy will tag James Alt, our folk builder in Wisconsin, for you. He's going to be your best bet for who to reach out. He's a folk builder for your region, and he can get you in touch with our Michigan membership and help you get set up. James Alt, JAULT at runestone.org is his email, and he'd be really happy to help you. And hopefully, Mandy can tag him in the post and it'll get to you. What else we got, guys? Do we have more questions tonight? Tom, okay, I got your question here about, yeah, I found a couple of extra questions here I didn't get to. I apologize. Tom, your question about the hammer right. So, kind of on the back of what I just said, what's most important isn't always the what, but the why. You're right, you do. Edred Thorson established our modern hammer right and how we do it. I believe he established that protocol back in the 80s. Can't remember which book of his he describes it in, but basically to each of the directions and to above and below. Hammer in the north, hallow and hold this holy stead. And then doing that to each of those directions above and below. Sometimes people will do it in Icelandic, but that's what it means. And the idea is to separate sacred space from the mundane world. And so often, certainly in that day of Austatru, all of our practice was in places that were for other mundane uses. They were in a park or somebody's backyard or a makeshift area. So it was important to separate that out and twofold. It's important metaphysically to alert the spirits of the place to what you're doing, to cast out the negativity that's there, to welcome and embrace the gods and ancestors to a holy place that you've established. It's really important to cut that area out of time and space and make that area for ritual time. Now, you may have heard your Watchtower thing. I haven't heard. I'm not sure where that happened, but I know different people in different traditions come into it. The number of different things. The hammer hallowing is really important. It's traditional in the Austrian Folk Assembly and in Austatru, but also there's people who will walk a circle around the perimeter with a torch or with a lantern and hallow it and protect it by fire. The idea is really the same, though. You're creating that sacred space and setting it apart and putting forth the idea that it's protected. In the Hammerite, you're beseeching Thor through his might to hold that place sacred and protected, and invoking him for that. But the important part is just that you're establishing that sacred space. As a special to me side note, we don't have to do that at our Hofs anymore, which is important to me. And people still do, and I try to stop them. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Because we live in a day and age where, at least at those Hofs, we have permanent sacred space. We have permanent locations that are for ritual, so we don't need to make new sacred space every time. And that's a really special thing, and it's an important mental cue for a lot of us who've done this for a long time. We're in a day and age with permanent sacred space. Not only don't we need to ward off, bad juju from the area, but that hallowed ground, by our repeated ritual on it year after year as time progresses, becomes full of spiritual might and main and Megan. It becomes potent spiritually to stand in that place where so many rituals have been performed. So we live in a day where that's a thing, and I'm really honored to be part of that. Exactly, Will. Exactly. Do we have any more questions tonight? Um, See George asking about describing that moment where the folk come together, and the specialness of that moment. Not sure if I understand exactly what he's trying to get at or get out of me on it, but what I want to share with you, I guess, is a story about that. Um, we all got our issues with Facebook and how Facebook works. None of us think it's the best thing ever. None of us agree with their editorial choices on what they ban and what they don't. But it's real useful. That's why I'm talking to you guys on it right now. And that's how a lot of us have gotten to know other AFA members that live very far away from them. A couple years back, AFA leadership and I were able to travel to Sweden and meet our Swedish AFA members. If any of you aren't aware, Sweden is one of our, well, Scandinavia in general. We have some really great Norwegian members. We got some Danes, and we now have two Icelanders. But the Swedes are the bulk of that Scandinavian membership, and they're one of the most active regions in the Astro Folk Assembly. They've really been great, a huge part of our family for the past few years. But these are people that, we just knew over Facebook, kind of knew who they were. Some of us have had some conversations, just Facebook back and forth with one another. But it was one of the most special things in the world and hard to describe when we went over there. Got off the plane in Oslo because that's where the best flights were. And some of our Norwegian members met up with us and drove us down just south into Sweden, and that's where we met up with Anders and his family and our Swedish members. And then we proceeded to spend about a week with our membership over there. Well, after just a few hours, our connection with these people was so close. And we had one group of people that hung out with us day and night for, I think, about 3 days there. And when we had to, and then so the initial 3 days where we got to see a lot of the sites, Andrew showed us amazing things. And then we had the event over there that Anders was holding, the main event, and we celebrated that together. But after that, we had to separate, and we went across the country to meet some other members and see some other sites over in the eastern half of the country. When we left that group of people, over 3 days of seeing these people because we were united by our AFA faith and our AFA family, these people were my family. And we had grown men tearing up and crying, not to mention all of the women crying when we had to say goodbye because we'd become so close in such a small amount of time. That's what happens. That's the sacred moment when the folk come together. And I've been beautifully blessed in my life with that many times in the Astro Folk Assembly. And I hope you guys all have those experiences too. I get emotional even thinking about that because it was such a special thing. Um, yeah, if you can make it out to AFA events, some really amazing things happen at them. All right, guys, what other questions do we got? Want to make sure nobody leaves here without having their questions answered. Ian, it's a really big question. We have just about 70 members in Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and Denmark, and I can't recite all of their names to you right now. It would take too much time and probably bore some of our folks, and I wish I could, but I'm sure that I don't know the name of all 70 of them. But if you reach out, Ian, not to laugh too much at the question, if you reach out to Anders Nilsson, he's our folk builder for the area, and he can get you squared away with some of those folks if you want to make some of those connections or just talk to people over there. Those members are all part of your AFA family too. So reach out to Anders and he can get you in touch with some people over there. But yeah, some of our most amazing people, some of the people that I've become closest to. So I'd encourage you reaching out and getting to know some of those guys. Hmm. Oh. Charles, like I say, I hope people are getting a hold of you. James, I'd really like you to be able to reach out and talk to James Alt. You can find him on Facebook. As soon as we get off here, I'm going to try to remember to make sure he gets tagged in your post. Sounds like you'd really like to get in touch with some folks in your area, in the Michigan area, and James would be the guy to help you with that. Um, But yeah, we have folks over there. If you're willing to travel a little bit, maybe a couple hours, we can definitely get you to meet some people if that's what you'd like to do. So yeah, I'm gonna try to make sure James gets tagged, but if not, JAULT@runestone.org. Terry, I hope people have considered moving closer to Hoffs. Um, right now, I'm about 2.5 hours from Odenshoff, but I still make it over there about once a month. Um, Sometimes communities where Hoffs are maybe not the best fit for everyone, but that's our plan when we get them is to get people to live a little bit closer. I know that to be closer to Odenshoff, I moved out here from Florida. So I may not be super close, but 2.5 hours is much closer than I think what was it, about 32 from where we were in Florida. All right, guys. Well, I'm still watching stuff coming in. Hope there's James. I'm sorry I can't see you on my screen. It's really different what I can see and what I can't. So I only get part of the story. Thank you for jumping in and helping Charles out and helping him get situated. Um, and here's another thing. I've been told that on these, you guys can't see the questions they're getting asked. So sometimes I just jump on there and respond to it like everybody can see the conversation. I apologize. I'll try to get a little bit better at prefacing, who and what I'm responding to. Up until last month, I thought you guys were all seeing the side chat that I was seeing. So we're coming to about an hour here tonight, but I'm not in a massive rush if there are more questions. So in the next few minutes here, if you guys could figure out anything you wanted to ask but didn't get a chance to, um, yeah, like I said, I'd love to answer anything you guys have about the AFA, about Ostertrue, or anything else you guys think that I could be helpful with or you want to hear my take on. Please be assured you guys do have my full attention when I'm looking down here at the phone. I've got to check my screen and the phone just to try to get as many of the questions as I can. Unfortunately, I still end up missing some, but we're working on it. Tom's talking about doing a hunting pictures contest. I'd be really curious to see what you get. I'm not sure what you typically hunt for, Tom. I know I miss it. It's been too long since I've been hunting. One of the really special religious experience in my life was the moose hunt that I went on in Alaska back in 2009, where I got my first moose. So that's neat. I'd be curious to see the hunting pictures that you get gathered. George, I really don't understand your last question. I'm sorry. Brian, you are in South Carolina. The person you would like to talk to about joining is Daniel Young. Hopefully, Mandy can beat me to it. She already tagged him. Daniel is a great guy, friend of mine. I think the world of Daniel. He'd be happy to help you. He also lives in South Carolina, and I'm not sure where in the state you are, but you're very fortunate because in the state right above you, we got Thorshoff, and that's a really special place, and I hope you're able to make it out to it. But yeah, Daniel's the man you want to speak with. Lauren and Devin. Um, yes, I hope you guys make it out to the next event too. Not sure where you guys are located. I can check the database when I get a chance and try to get you connected. But go to that contact page at www.runestone.org and reach out to your local folk builders. They're the ones that are going to get you connected and get you set up and make sure you're at those events if you're interested. All right, guys. Anybody got any last questions for me? If not, I think we'll call this a night and I'll go get myself some dinner. Mary, I have considered Zoom, but it's difficult and there's payment involved, and it's very hard to accommodate the amount of people that we have on here with Zoom. For smaller calls where everybody can pop up, I think Zoom's a really good resource. And I say that there may be a way to do this on Zoom that I'm just not an expert on how to do that the best. I could ask Melissa Mills, our folk builder in the Central Corridor region. I know she uses Zoom quite a bit. So I'll ask her about doing it for something of this large of a crowd. Cool thing about Facebook is this pops up and everybody, is always checking their Facebook Messenger on their phone and everywhere else. And this pops up immediately. So people that didn't plan to be here get a little notification and decide to drop in. We get a lot of traffic that way, and I want to make sure I can reach as many of my AFA family as I can with these things. And as it is now, Facebook is that solution. Terry, I'm not sure about Swan and the Iron Guard and the calendar creating. You'll have to run it by me, and I can deem whether it is heretical or not. But yeah, I'll talk to Swan about that. I'm kind of curious. He did mention they were doing a little bit something, but I'm not sure what that looks like. But I'm glad you're excited about it, and I'll definitely take a look and see what he's up to on it. Preparation. So Robert asks, he says he's going to be attending his first winter nights. I'm assuming you're going to go to the one in the Poconos. I really hope, because that one's spectacular, and I'll get a chance to meet you. If that's what we're referring to, what can you expect? And is there anything you need to do to prepare? Yes, we do a DCR bloat, and I'm going to put this out now, and I'm going to remind myself, and I'm going to remind Cliff Erickson, who's running it. Bring pictures of your DCR for the DCR table. Um, that's a special thing if we remember it, because everybody's so excited when they get there. Sometimes folks forget those pictures, but basically your DCR are your female ancestors. Only folks that have passed, not folks that are still living. But if you have female ancestors you have pictures of, bring those, and we can set them up on the DCR table, because we honor the DCR. That's kind of our focus at Winter Nights, and that's something you can do to prepare. Also, bring some nice clothes. We try to dress our best when we're approaching our gods and when we're practicing our faith. Nothing to stress over, just the best you can do. Um, you're welcome to show up in whatever you show up in, but you might want to make sure you pack a couple pairs of nice clothes. Other than that, winter nights also can be kind of chilly that time of year in Pennsylvania. And the cabin and the lodging, you need to make sure you bring something warm to sleep in, a real warm sleeping bag. You may want to bring some hats, some gloves, that kind of stuff for the day, because it can get kind of cool. So do make sure you prepare for chilly Pennsylvania weather in October. What you can expect is a spectacular event. Beautiful, beautiful area that we do this at Camp Natimus in the Pocono Mountains. That time of year, the leaves are changing, and it's just a stunning camp. It's one of my. I can't say that the Hoffs aren't my favorite, because there's so much important things on that. But as far as properties we don't own that we've done events on, this place is by far my favorite. A lot of history there with us. Like I say, it's beautiful. It feels nice. I love it there. It's also where I met my wife, Mandy. A lot of special memories there. But no, winter nights would be a great time with your folk, and people would love meeting you guys. So yeah, I hope you guys do come out to that. Yes, Facebook's interface for this kind of thing is lousy. It's just a big enough net that I catch most AFA members on. There's other services that are much more efficient, but I won't get as many of the people dropping in. And I'd like to know, I mean, if you reach out to me privately, if you have any solutions to that or ways where we'll get Facebook traffic, but on a different platform for that, and I'd be really interested in hearing it. I'm afraid I'm not tech savvy enough to know that from where I'm sitting. Hmm. All right. Michael asks, what's the best way to address family members who may think negatively of the AFA? Why do they think negatively of the AFA? That's the big question because that's going to affect how you have that discussion with them. Because you mentioned the AFA in specific and not also true, I'm going to take a shot and think maybe because of stuff our enemies accuse us of, or if they accuse us of, any of the varying insults that get thrown around. I'm not sure if the issue is your family has a problem because we're folkish or because maybe rumors that other people have started. Um, I think your best bet on all these things, and I know I'm repetitive on it, is live a noble life and be a good person. Because at some point, if they see someone that they respect that's part of the AFA and that vouches for it, whether they want to admit it or not, instinctively they will. There's a mental thing because you can't picture somebody who you trust implicitly and think really highly of. You can't picture that person doing something that's really sinister or really bad. And I think there's a mental game that comes on that, well, if Michael does it and we think really highly of Michael, but these people say they're, some evil, horrible, hateful, whatever these people say we are, putting those two together, it causes a split in their head and it makes them stop and think and give it more of a fair shot. I think the next thing I'd say is ask them very openly to tell you what they don't like or what they're concerned about, and then answer frankly and honestly. And if they bring you questions that you don't know an answer, ask your folk builder or send me a message and ask me. That's why I do these things, is to clear anything up. And I think when you address things that they're concerned about, don't accept name calling. Ask specifically what the AFA does that they are offended by, or ask specifically what the AFA believes that they find offensive. Very often you'll find they're under misconceptions, or they're just parroting, name calling that other folks do. So it's really important to get down to specifically what their concerns are and then dispel any that aren't true and try to conceptualize ones that are true or that are valid. But it's a hard question to give you a complete answer on if I don't know exactly what their complaint is or what their concern is. Hmm. All right, I'm gonna do one more check here to see if I've got any questions, and then I've got some pork loin that needs to get eaten. Apparently, word is that Spawn likes his calendars. I was unaware. Um, that said, anybody on this call, we are currently in the process of collecting pictures from last year so that we can construct the AFA 2021 calendar. So if there's pictures from events you've been at that are high quality and that are nice, please send those to photos@runestone.org. And we would love to use some of the pictures of AFA events and AFA gatherings for that calendar. Okay, cool. All right. So this is what I got. Last question of the night, again with Michael, but thank you for clearing up what they ask about. You've got family that are concerned that the AFA is a hate group. We're not. That's the best thing, honestly. We're not a hate group. And I think that you can show that to them. We don't talk about hatred. We don't spend time wasting our time hating stuff. We've got members that hate all kind of things and all kind of people. I'm sure everyone does. But as a church, where's the hate at? I mean, I'm tearing up on this thing telling you about the friends I made in Scandinavia. I don't think if you listen to any of these live interviews for an hour a month for the 2 years I've been doing them, that you can find talk about all the people we hate and all the stuff we don't like. If you expose if your family's willing to read our material, to listen to things like this, or to attend an event, I think that they would have a very hard time feeling that anything we do or anything we say is hateful. Because quite honestly, we're too busy focusing on the things that we love. I think it's more accurate to say that we're a love group, although that may have weird connotations. Um, But no, the AFA is about all the things that we love. We love our folk, we love our family, we love our gods. Um, it's unfortunate that when someone hears a rumor, especially one that's scary, they react to it very often without clearing it up or asking. You know, I'd even invite next month. I'll be on here and I'll do this very same thing next month. Have your family member that's concerned get on here and ask me something if they're that concerned. I'm taking all questions and I'm happy to address it. But I want to assure you, it's not just something we say to avoid labels. We're not hateful. We're not hateful people. We love ourselves, we love our gods, and we love what we're trying to do. Um, and that's the biggest. It's the biggest thing in our favor is that we're just honest about who we are and what we believe, and that we stick to that. And so that's the best I have to really suggest on that. But I would suggest not shutting, especially family. Don't ever shut them down. Keep the door open and try to answer frankly whatever their concern is. I'd also say this too as a side note: don't feel defensive and apologize for assumptions that they make about us or spend all your time trying to defend us and make us look perfect. Be honest. If they ask what our views are or what we do, tell them honestly. They may or may not agree, but they'll respect them. And at the very least, they'll respect you for being honest with them about where we're at. And the truth is, honestly, we're not about hate. We're about the things that we love. And with that, I love my AFA family. Thank you guys so much for joining me this evening. I look forward to these all month. I hope that I will see you guys at Fall Fest this weekend. And if I don't, I hope you guys have an amazing September. Hope you guys have a really good winter finding. And I'll talk to you guys in October. Hail the gods, hail the folk, hail the AFA.